Okay, now that the system has been set up and it's had time to actually synchronize the disks, it's time for me to take you through some of the menu items, some of the capabilities of the NAS unit. Now the cool thing is, once you've got it set up on your network, you can go directly to the control center or the admin panel just by doing the IP address and putting it into the browser, and that'll automatically take you to the login page, and you'll be able to log in and manage your unit there. You don't actually need to keep the app, the initial app um, that was installed with it. In fact, you don't really need it to begin with. It just makes it easier to find the IP address of the unit. But if you know your way around your router and you know how to find the IP address of the clients, then you'd be able to find it anyway, regardless of that. So you don't really need the other app. Now, of course, once you log in, you just the user ID and password that you've set up during installation is done. And of course, as good practice, and I will be doing this after I finish recording my video, is to rename your admin account to something else that will actually save that will make it a little bit more secure, because it's going to be a little bit harder for people to guess what the admin account user is. Of course, it's never foolproof, but it's one of many things that you can do to make your NAS a little bit more secure. And less susceptible to people going in there. Now, once you've logged in, these are the apps that are installed by default based on the profile that I set up or I have chosen while setting up the system. So if you remember, we chose the home setup instead of a business. If it was a business, you'd have a few more apps, but the really cool thing is you've got full control over what these apps do and where and what apps you want installed on there. And that's all done through the App Central app that is here, and I'll go through that in a minute. But once you've done, it's very similar to any kind of phone navigation where you've got a next page, for example, and essentially this is a Linux box. Linux box meaning that it's the full computer, full server. You can have a web server on it, you can have a database server on it, you can have whatever you want really on it, an FTP site, as well as of course being functioning as a NAS. So to access the different settings, I'll go through these icons one by one. The first one is just users, managing users. So the local users, you can set them up. You can add an admin account, and of course, if I wanted to go and edit the admin account and change it later on, which I will be doing after that, I'm not going to tell you what it is, but it will. You'll be able to change the names of the users here. You can define your groups, and within every group, so you can have users as part of groups. So, for example, if I go into admin, I edit the admin users. You see that this is the admin group. I can see who the members are, so I can remove and add people. So as I add new users, you can control who gets to see what, and then finally what folders they have access to. So whether it's read write or read only or any of the other the permissions that you might have. And the same applies for if you've got Active Directory integration or LDAP integration with your system. So you can link it to Active Directory groups and users, and then set up some shared folders. And you can even go specifically into specific app privileges. So this is pretty cool because it gives you full control over what you want your apps to be able to do or not be able to do within on your NAS. So it's pretty secure from that respect. So the next one is an activity monitor. Activities, it just shows you what's going on your NAS unit. So when you first start it up, it goes through and starts reading and shows you what the CPU is like, the memory, the network, the disk usage, for example, and then you can drill into each of these items. So you can just show the CPU or the memory, and it just shows you how much is used and how much is left, as well as network, etc. Now, and right now I've got just one LAN, so it's just because my router is full and I couldn't actually put two different LAN connections into it. That was the distance schedule. So you can see what processes are running, for example. So this is a good way of really controlling and knowing what's happening on your NAS unit. As I said, it is a Linux server, so they have a lot of control and a lot of capabilities to do that. Disk usage, you're able to just see what the capacity is. Now, of course, these were 12 terabytes, and in practically every time you install one of these NAS units, just because of the differences in the way that hard drive manufacturers market their and calculate their capacity versus other units, or other manufacturers, other vendors calculate them, there's always going to be a difference. So in this case, I've actually lost 2 terabytes before I even did anything to the app. It's unfortunate, but it's just the way marketing is done these days, and not much you can do about it without actually getting yourself in a knot about it. But you can see that for the most part it's free at this point. And then you've got a whole bunch of different settings, for example. So to be able to check the usage history, to log, to keep track of what's going on within your NAS monitor. As I said, I'll go through the App Center in a minute. Online help, of course, takes you to the online help if you need any kind of searching or looking at how to do things. Backup and restore allows you to do a bunch of backups of the files on this NAS unit. So if you've got enough space somewhere else where you want to back up 12 terabytes of data, you can set up whether it's an FTP site or an internal or external backup, as well as cloud backup. So if you want to put it onto an Amazon S3 cloud or some other system, you can do that. So whichever one that you want, well, it has the capabilities for you to offload and have a backup of this NAS drive somewhere in the cloud. Now, of course, the reason I bought this NAS cloud to begin, or a NAS drive to begin with, is to avoid having that much data in the cloud anyway, but it is a useful feature. This allows you to connect to external devices. So as you saw from the setup, the NAS device comes with 3 different USB ports. They're all USB 3, so you can connect this external drives, you can connect a printer, you connect Wi-Fi dongles or UPS or Bluetooth dongles, as well as even an optical drive, so you can have full control over that. And once you've done any of these, you're able to control that from within here and do certain things within that. Then you also have just a simple file explorer. So file explorer just allows you to go in, look at your files, manage your the data within there, and just sort of do the usual file actions that you would typically do within any file explorer. So just a way of getting it on there. Now, of course, once you've got your NAS on your network, you typically are not really going to use this. Unless you're doing some operations directly on the NAS, and it might be a little bit faster than having to copy and paste from a PC or from a Mac, etc. Here it shows you just some of the services that are available and you could enable or disable on this NAS. So as I mentioned, it is a Linux server. So being a Linux server, the file system, for example, how the network will see it. So for both for Windows as well as Mac OS, so you can enable and do a whole bunch of things. So network file server or FTP server, for example, WebDAV or web server, so you can enable HTTP. You can have it comes with MariaDB server, but there are apps where you can download MySQL, for example, or other different types of databases that you might use, as well as from a terminal perspective, Linux server. So you can go in using command lines and you can do a lot of different things. Now, I think some of it is a little bit locked up because it is a modified version of Linux, but there are things that you can do, whether through FTP or secure FTP. So it allows you to turn on and off these services on the NAS unit if you wanted to. There are also settings. And settings are really related to how you use the NAS unit and how how it actually functions in here. So, for example, general, how do you access it? Which port do you access it to? If you notice on the top here is 8000, so it just uses that 8000. You can define the sign-in page style, so you can put in graphics or pictures, etc. around that. Here you get control over your network. So in general, that's the name of the server, the default gateway, for example. And then it shows you what LAN device, how you're connected to the network. So right now, as I mentioned, even though initially I had put two Ethernet cables into the NAS unit, I realized that my router's only got one available, so I'll have to figure out how to use both so that I can maximize or speed up the access to this NAS unit as well. And if you've got some proxy settings, you can do that. Regional options for date formats, times, etc. The hardware, you can decide what happens within the hardware. So LED indicators, for example, you can disable some of the front ones. There is a buzzer, so you can decide when that buzzer should turn on. So when it powers on, for example, when you're powering off, if you're restarting, if there's a warning or error. So I have yet to see any of these happen. So we'll see how annoying they might get if an error or a warning actually does take place. And then you can disable reset button or infrared receiver for additional security if you're worried about people having access to the NAS directly. And also you can define notifications, so you can configure any kind of notification methods, whether it's SMS or or push notifications, so that when things happen on your NAS, whether it's an error or a warning or anything else, you can decide to get notified for that, which is a very cool feature. I haven't actually started adding it yet, but if you go and add, for example, you can decide it's the email that gets sent. You can decide what type of it, whether it's an email or SMS. I think if it's an SMS, you can decide one of two service providers that they provide. I haven't tried this, so I don't know if there's extra cost associated with the SMS version of it or not. But email will definitely be free, and you'll be able to type that email up, and decide on what kind of who the sender should be. The ADM Defender is really it's additional settings for, or additional security. I'm sorry, for your NAS device. So you can allow a firewall. You can put in a network defender where you can put in a trusted list of IP addresses who can access the NAS, or you can auto blacklist, meaning that if someone tries to log in multiple times and they fail, you can automatically blacklist them, or you can just permanently blacklist some IP addresses, or whitelist IP addresses, so that only these IP addresses can access the NAS device. Certificate manager, if you want to put security certificates on there so that everything is safe, and at least seems safe from that perspective. As you can see, it comes with support.asustor.com. So essentially what that means is that in other areas, if you're doing a subdomain of asustor.com and as a DNS for your NAS, it will be secure, and you won't get that error for the security. And then you've got the different firmware settings around this. So ADM version for this NAS, for example, you are using the latest software, and you can control what's in there, as well as the recycle bin. Energy saver features are interesting because you can define that the internal disk should stand by after 30 minutes, and external disk stand by after 30 minutes. So you can power save and even prolong the life of the disks if you're not using them for, like, for example, for me, because this is a home unit. It makes sense for it not to be continuously going when I'm not using it, especially at night, for example, or if I'm the only one that's using it. So this is actually a useful feature. The one thing you still have to realize is that if there are apps that are syncing in the background constantly, etc., that they might have an effect on that. So you'll have to see and try out some of the apps that you're using. And I think in my case that might be the OneDrive is actually preventing this from shutting down. I could be wrong, but I'll check that up. And see if that's the case. The Easy Connect, it allows you to connect from anywhere to this NAS unit, and essentially it's just create a cloud ID, and from that cloud ID you can go and connect to that. Manual connect is being able to, as I mentioned before, if you have a subdomain, you can create that subdomain and be able to view that. You can also do a factory reset or just register your unit. So in this case, it has been registered for that. So just settings, the general settings for the NAS unit. There's also Storage Manager. So this is an app that allows you to get a little bit more insights into what your disks and volumes look like right now. So you can see that just by default, the overview shows you that I have one volume that's got 10.82 terabytes, and RAID level RAID 1, and there are 2 disks that are associated with them, and the status so far seems green for both of them. If I want to look at more details for that volume, again, it shows you how much percentage is used on there, as well as information about the specific disk. So you can see that disk 1, for example, how much space is left on it, the temperature both in Celsius and Fahrenheit, as well as if I narrow down it, it shows you what more information on there. So we know that it's an Ironwolf disk that you saw, that based on that, the serial number and etc. So some good for specific information to the disks. And if I have iSCSI, which I don't have right now, then they would show up on top of this too. The system information really gives you information about the operating system for the NAS unit. It gives you the BIOS system name, how long it's been up, for example, as well as the model and some information around that. So you can see that the fan speed is going at this speed. Here's system temperature, not necessarily the hard drive temperatures, and the CPU temperature going on there, as well as some networking information. So you see, as as I mentioned before, LAN 1, LAN 2, and then some other information around how you're connected to that. There's also a log of all the different systems or all the different events that are happening on the system. So so it shows you everything that's going on. These popped up. I don't know. I'll have to look up what these mean. The IHM log DB is corrupt, but I have to look at what they mean. But essentially, it's a good way of looking at every now and then just to see what's going on within your NAS and if everything is going well. And this is who the users are that are currently logged in. So you can see that this user is logged in from this account, and I'm logged in as the admin. And then one of the features that are available that come with the NAS unit is what's called a Dr. Asustor. Who knows how to pronounce this, if it's Asustor or Asustor, I'm not sure exactly how to do that. But it suggests different things for you that you can do for your NAS just to make sure that to continue being healthy. So, for example, enabling Network Defender to prevent against malicious attacks, or ensure that the disks are healthy. You can do a bad block scan periodically, so you can configure all these. So it's a good way of just getting insights into what you need to do with that. Um, Easy Sync Manager is just a way to synchronize between a computer, for example, or a mobile phone, or a mobile app, or a mobile device, with the NAS device. So you can go and connect directly to it, and you're able to go and back up and synchronize between the two of them. So it's pretty useful from that respect, as well as just some settings around that. There's also a snapshot center, so you actually are able to take snapshots of your NAS drive at a certain time. So in case something gets messed up or something gets accidentally deleted or replaced or lost, you can restore some of these snapshots. But I think you have to take these snapshots manually every now and then if you wanted to, and I'm sure they take up additional space on the drive, because they have to track the logs and the changes, etc. And then there are a bunch of other apps such as Asustor Portal, which is another view of this. Looks good as a video player, sounds good as a music player, and then there is the media server that allows this to stream videos or music to other devices on your network. So it's pretty useful just as a setting, and you can just set it up um, with a whole bunch of. So just it's a standard UPnP2 server, and then there's an app that I've installed, DataSync for OneDrive, just so that I can sync my OneDrive accounts and just back them up on here. Although I think I'm going to turn it off, just because there are two problems with it that I found. One has been that it only allows you to link to one account. I've got multiple OneDrive accounts that I would like to set up, so I don't think that will work for me. As well as the fact that I think it keeps, so far, I could be wrong on this one too, but so far it seems like it's keeping the drives awake the whole time, because every time I look at the drive so far, it's been awake, and I haven't seen any logs to indicate that they've turned this off. Now, the last thing I'll show you, or the last app I'll show you, is the App Central. So this is where you can set up additional apps on your NAS drive. And here you can see it shows you which ones are installed. For example, you can disable some of them, or you can even delete them altogether if you want to, or uninstall them altogether if you wanted to. But it shows you that I've got a bunch of apps here that are installed. You can check for a system update or apps update from within here, or you can manually install something, and then you can there's a bunch of settings for the apps. If you want to search for new apps, you can click on all apps and even search for them. So you can see there's a bunch of apps that come out of the box, both built by Asustor themselves or built by third parties. So you can have a look at them. And as I mentioned before, essentially this is the Linux box. So you'll even have things like you've got root devices, you've got even some games and some additional apps. So anybody that can create something, you can potentially put that up on there, and be able to install these apps if you wanted to. The last thing I'll show you is on the top here. Of course, as a user, I can go in and edit my personal account. So I can go in and change my password, for example, change the username, look at my volume usage and what kind of usage of there I've been doing, as well as change the theme for myself. So I just change the color scheme, the background, etc. But even more importantly, there are a couple of items here. One is this quick snapshot view of what's going on the NAS device. So any logs that have come out, so these are the two logs that that I just mentioned, so I'll have to check what these mean. The activity monitor, what's going on with the CPU and memory, for example, as well as the network and storage, and then which users have been going on or are using the NAS currently. So it's relatively useful from that. that respect, as well as any announcement by the system. And here is just the task monitor. So if I tap on it or click on it, you can see that it shows all the activities that have happened. So in this case, I moved some videos, for example, just to test it out yesterday, and it looks like it was finished and it was done from that aspect. And once I'm done, of course, I can just come back over here, and I've got the capabilities to sleep the unit, or restart, or power it off, or just sign out, and that will allow me to sign out from the unit, just for additional security.